Now, our next guest was hauled in front of the court, splashed across the tabloids and denounced by the church, all because of his pioneering work as a doctor.
As Ireland's first vasectomy doctor, he is now the subject of a short film which focuses on a particularly shocking part of his story.
I was doing my second vasectomy of the day, and this guy comes in. He asked my secretary, where's the doctor? And she very obligingly said, he's down there, first, second on the right. When he got into the surgery, he got the gun out of his bag and assembled it there in the waiting room in front of everybody else. And the next thing, the door is kicked open behind me.
Dr. Andrew Rynne, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Was it hard to watch that piece?
No.
No?
I don't find any of it hard to watch because it happened and, you know.
Just take us back to the day itself. You were describing it there.
It was the 12th of July, the year 2002. And I was doing a vasectomy. I was minding my own business. And this fella busts into the surgery. And I didn't know who he was and I didn't know what he wanted. And he had a gun up to his shoulder. And he said to me, you destroyed my life 8 years ago, so I'm going to take yours now. Is that all right? And he went right up to me, right up. And I could look down through the barrel. And I understand guns. But the particularly dangerous thing about it was that he was wearing gloves, big, thick gloves in the middle of summer. Mm-hmm. It was July. And he was wearing a woolly hat. And when you're wearing gloves, you can't feel what pressure you have under the trigger. And I was looking down the barrel, and I could see the gun moving up and down as he was breathing. And he kept it there for maybe a minute, and then he lowered it and aimed at my genitalia and took a crack at that.
Did he fired?
Yeah, absolutely. And he missed my genitalia, thanks be to God. I mightn't be here talking to you now. Missed completely, and I hit the floor, and there was blood all over the place, and I felt nothing. I didn't know I was shot until I saw the blood, and obviously, and of course the noise.
So you were shot in the hip, was it?
Well, he missed me. He missed my genitalia. Went into my the neck of my femur, and once it hit a bone, it went into my joint, and that's where it was. So I pushed him aside and I ran out, and he kept firing at me. He fired as I went down the corridor. And he got outside, and the fellow I was doing a vasectomy at this stage had got up off the table.
It's like, I mean, I was saying it's like a movie. It is a movie now, but it's an incredible story.
He got up off the table and he went outside, and he gave my assassin a cigarette to try and calm him down.
Oh my God, wasn't he great to go to him like that?
Yeah. Huh?
Wasn't he wonderful to go and try and negotiate
with
this guy?
It was, yeah. And I've never really apologised to this guy. And I never saw him since. The guy I was doing a vasectomy on. But I wanted to say it's very hard to do a vasectomy when you've been shot.
It's certainly, I could only imagine. You still have the bullet, do you?
I do, yeah. When I went up to St. James's that evening, and it took them 3 hours to get it out because they had to dislocate my hip, and they got it out. And of course, in these situations, they usually do give you the bullet. Yeah. And it was flattened out. It's called a dum-dum, and it was flattened out. So I put it in a little jar, and I have it at home on my dresser, except I can't put my hands on it at the moment, otherwise I would have brought it.
It's some story. I suppose when you think about it as well, the guy who shot you, we should say he had mental health problems. And I know that you actually went to meet him again. He was in the Dundrum mental institution afterwards, wasn't he?
I think to say that he had mental problems would be an exaggeration. His wife left him after he'd had a vasectomy. He had pain after the vasectomy, probably more than usual. He phoned me up and he says that I didn't give him the attention that he deserved or felt he deserved. And he began to become very angry with me. And that things were falling asunder for him. He blamed it all on his vasectomy.
Because he wasn't well, I suppose that's the other side of it.
Yeah, but it's called transference. Yeah. But if you start transferring all your problems into another individual, it doesn't mean that you've got a mental health problem. So that's what he claimed when he was arraigned before the courts. He claimed insanity, and he was sent off to Dundrum.
Yeah, because he pleaded insanity, and that was accepted by the court. But let's take you back yourself. I know you trained in Canada, you came back, and then you started performing vasectomies in the 1970s, a hugely controversial time where the Catholic Church and the family was the centre of everything, and vasectomies were a no-no.
Well, vasectomies were hardly heard of. When I came back from Canada in 1974, there was nobody doing them, nobody knew how to do them, and nobody had the courage to do them in the face of the Catholic Church's objection to that kind of thing. There was no law about it. It wasn't in our constitution. It was perfectly legal. I had learned how to do them in Canada, and the Irish Family Planning Association was just starting to offer that service. And I wasn't doing too much down in Clane at the time.
Yeah, so you decided to...
I was slightly unemployed, as you might be, and I was only too delighted to do vasectomies for them.
And Andrew, maybe for our younger viewers, what was the problem the Catholic Church had with all this at the time?
Well, they would have looked at it as a form of mutilation. More importantly, they would have seen it as liberating men and allowing them to have extramarital things. I mean, they would have taken all sorts of wrong attitudes about it.
Like in 2019, I think, say, anyone maybe under, say, 20 or 30 would listen to this and say, oh my God, what kind of a society was here in the 70s?
Yeah, but all religion, if you think about it, uses sex to control people with. I mean, the Islamic people do the same thing. Sex, if you can get the people to behave themselves sexually, then you have them.
You have them.
And that's what we were doing here.
And you thought the same. But your own father asked for you to be excommunicated from the church.
Yes. Yes. When I did the first 160 vasectomies, I was asked to, I didn't want to do this, but I was asked to write a paper, a scientific paper on the first 160 vasectomies done in Ireland on Irish men and their age and the number of kids they had and how much pain and blah, blah, blah. And I wrote up this paper and it was published in the Irish Medical Journal at the time. And the News of the World picked it up immediately and put it on the front page. The News of the
Slightly
World
changed things, I'd
was
say.
then and is possibly now. I don't know if it still exists.
No.
Sensational. You know, Irish doctor sterilises 160 men in Dublin clinic.
Even the way it's phrased there.
I know.
Like it has a certain slant to it, doesn't
absolutely. Dublin clinic, you know, it sounds like backstreet stuff, you know.
Yeah, even to be sterilised, you're thinking...
Yes, exactly.
But men were afraid to be identified if they had a vasectomy too.
Well, they wanted to
anonymity.
Keep it, they wanted to keep it quiet. Most of them.
I'd imagine it's still the same way, is it?
No,
is
it's
it not?
Absolutely not. Okay. No, they couldn't care less.
Can I ask you a question? Just when men came to you, what in the 70s, what were their reasons to have a vasectomy? Was it that they didn't want any more children, or what were the
very same reasons as it have today?
Same today, okay.
You've got 2, 3, 4 children, whatever, and you talk to this with your partner or wife, and you decide you don't want to have any more. So your options are to wear condoms, so she can take the pill, blah blah blah, and vasectomy is still a very easy way out if you're of that mindset.
And if you go back a few years ago, say if a man and his wife, they were there together, they actually had to speak about it, and you have to get the consent of your wife to go ahead with this. At the time,
well, that was the case even when I started in the family planning clinic in Sing Street. We used to get the 2 of them in, and I always thought that this was wrong. I felt that a man's fertility was a man's fertility, as a woman's fertility is. It belongs to you, and you shouldn't.
That the body was autonomous.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to ask for somebody's permission. Though I understand the reason why you might, and you make the assumption that he has her permission or that they're okay with this, but to be actually signing like that is unnecessary.
But you were behind changing that then?
Yeah, well, I was because I just didn't insist on it.
Yeah.
And there's no pretext in law for having to do that.
Of course, we must remember as well the 70s was a time that contraception was illegal. So you didn't obviously believe in that either.
Well, non-medical there's medical contraception, which is the birth control pill, which was legal but difficult to get because most doctors were conforming to the wishes of the church on these matters. And then non-medical contraception, which basically is condoms, became legal after the McGee case. It's a long story, but you could import them, but you couldn't sell them.
Yeah, that's why people went to the north and the whole.
But we didn't sell them. We gave them to them. Yeah. Here you are. We would like a donation now, so they gave us a donation.
So technically, you weren't selling them.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Very clever.
And that was the irregular after the McGee case that Charles Haughey tried to correct with his Irish solution to the Irish problem.
Were you prosecuted at one stage?
I was. Prosecuted? Yes, I was. Yeah. He brought that law in. The Irish solution to the Irish problem was introduced in 1979, but it actually came law about 1980, whereby doctors were supposed to write prescriptions for condoms. And we said, we're not going to do that. I mean, we didn't go to medical school to write prescriptions for toothpaste or soap. And this isn't a medicine. It's a piece of harmless plastic.
Yeah.
I know I have to be careful about the children looking in and all that, but and we didn't. And a whole 600 or 700 of us signed this document. I brought it up to the Dáil with a colleague of mine, Sheila Jones, and we presented it to them, because it made no difference. It wasn't going to make any difference. You can't change the law in Ireland, but you can break it. Yeah. And if you break the law and bring attention, you know, the Irish doctor has been fined £500, at times a lot of money, for selling a packet of condoms. Yeah. Of course, the next thing would be I'd do 2 weeks in prison, you know, and it really put the pressure on them. I was really impressed with the way that worked.
Yeah. It did. You had to put shine light. What about opticians and reading glasses?
Yeah, well, the opticians had a stranglehold on
like a monopoly, yeah.
Yeah, a monopoly, which they abused. And you couldn't buy reading glasses, simple reading glasses, which are only magnifying lenses. They charge you 40 or 50 pounds at the time, or maybe even euros. And that was exploitation. They were exploiting their monopoly position.
Yeah. So you're a crusader, really. You just see where injustices are.
Well, yeah, in a way. Another thing I was objecting to and still do is putting fluoride into the drinking water and all that kind of thing.
Which is a very controversial subject still in this country.
Yeah, but people should have a choice in these things. But you go to your tap and you're having a glass of whiskey or something, making a cup of tea, and you have to take this fluoride. And it's forced medication, mass medication.
Now, along with all of this, we were chatting with us. You play the tin whistle. Do you still play?
Yes, badly.
Where did you have time for all of this?
I learned in Rynne College, your country.
Down there. Oh, fair play, good.
Oh, no, fun. And even did you take the tin whistle over to Canada as well when you were over there in the late 60s?
Much to their annoyance and surprise. Yeah.
Did you think Canada was very ahead of us when it came to openness? When you trained there?
In many ways, Canada was very behind us and still is, you know,
really?
in terms of culture and so on.
Yeah.
And very, very conservative. But the wonderful thing about Canada is full of different religions, mostly of the Christian type.
So people were more open to change?
Absolutely. In the little town that I lived in, there were 6 different churches, Lutheran and Knox and all these funny
So they didn't
things.
have
and everyone got on with each other.
Absolutely did, and minded their own business.
And rightly so.
You're still working away, you're online, I believe?
Yeah, I do a bit of work online,
Brilliant.
Just before you go, did you live with Luke Kelly at some stage?
I did. Well, I only spent a couple of nights with him. Yeah. But Luke and
That's
I
all you'd need, I'd say.
We were good friends. And I knew, Ronnie Drew sang at my 60th birthday. I knew all the Dubliners. And of course, I knew Christy Moore very well. And I gave Christy Moore the Cliffs of Dooneen. And all of that stuff. And the first record I made was made in the house I'm still living in. It's called Prosperous. And they went on to form Planksty from there. So I'm steeped in that tradition.
A man of many talents. We have to say congratulations because the movie won an award in Belfast yesterday. Is that right, last night?
Yeah. Thank you very much. And it's great to be in Cork. And thank you for inviting me here.
Great to have you on.
And thank you for coming on. Of course, people can see that here in Cork as well. It's in the Gates Cinema as part of the Cork Indie Film Festival this Friday, the 11th of October. Andrew, thank you for coming in. Great to see you.
Great to meet you.
Maura.
Fair play, Andrew.